All right, what is up, everyone? We will get started now in just a minute. Want to give a special shout out to those of you in the chat, and also want to share with you guys who might be new to Zoom, haven't been on Zoom for a while, how to use the chat feature. So on the bottom of your screen, you should see the little chat icon. I have it enabled so you can chat with everyone. So feel free to jump in the chat. Would love to hear where you're joining us from. I think Mohammed has everyone beat. He is joining from Egypt, and it's 3 a.m. where he's at. So would be curious if anyone has Mohammed beat, but I'm guessing he wins the distance giveaway. I don't have anything to give away to you. Otherwise, I would. I'm looking around. I see some kids' toys. I could send you some kids' toys in Egypt, but the shipping would cost way more than what the toys are worth. But it is an honor to have you here, and the rest of you. Truly, it is great to have you guys hanging out with us. We will go ahead and formally dive into things. I will just say, as we are getting started, if you have friends who you think would benefit from this content, benefit from this workshop, feel free to give them the invite link. Would love to have them join us. Now, real quickly, I'm sure you already saw my post about what we are going to cover, but here is what we're going to cover. There's really 6 things I want to do tonight, guys, but here's the end goal. My end goal is an hour from now, you will be able to launch your first CloudGoat scenario and begin learning AWS pen testing hands-on in your own environment, hopefully in a safe way, in a convenient way, in a way that helps you grow and learn. So 6 things we're going to cover. Number 1, we're going to learn how to set up our own free tier AWS account. I think everybody enjoys free more than paid. And a lot of these, if not all these scenarios, you can launch in a free tiered account. So we'll set up our own free tiered AWS account. We will create a user in our AWS account. Really simple process, but I'll walk you through creating a user, putting them in the necessary group. We will generate access keys for that user. I'll share more about what those are when we get to that point, but it's really how we can communicate with our AWS environment through the command line interface. We will install some dependencies for Kali Linux so we can launch our CloudGoat scenarios. And then finally, we will install CloudGoat from the GitHub, and we will launch our very first scenario. Now, I do want you to know, in order to get the most out of this workshop, there's some knowledge you need to have, some really basic knowledge of Kali Linux. Now, really, you can do this on any Linux distribution. The only reason I'm choosing Kali Linux is just so I have something that all of us are using so I can troubleshoot issues together. But the real thing is Linux. You don't have to be on Kali. But for this workshop, I will be using Kali Linux. So a basic understanding of Kali Linux or Linux in general, and a basic understanding of penetration testing principles. So you do not need to be a pen tester, but just an understanding of things like enumeration, privilege escalation, that'll once again help you get the most out of doing the CloudGoat scenarios. You can use some of that prior knowledge and apply it to AWS. And then really just a hunger for learning new concepts. Even if you don't meet the other qualifications, you have a hunger for learn. You'll be able to get the rest of those qualifications out of the way, in my opinion. Now, the reason I wanted to start this workshop, real briefly about me, then we'll dive into the meat of the workshop. My name is Tyler Ramsby. I'm a penetration tester with Rhino Security Labs, and I've always been interested in AWS pen testing, but couldn't find any good resources to learn it. And the reason for that is some of the major platforms, they offer AWS training, but often you need a business license, which means it costs a bunch of money, and individuals like you and me cannot afford the business license. And so there's other things online that you can learn AWS pen testing, but it requires you to set up your own environment, which if you're like me, that's just intimidating. Setting up your own AWS environment, trying to install the dependencies, getting frustrated, hitting your keyboard in the process, it can be frustrating. And once I learned how to set up CloudGoat, I've done it, I don't know, 5 or 6 times now to kind of prep for this workshop. I realized it's a lot easier than it seems to be, and I learned some tricks in the process. So if you're like me and you want to learn AWS pen testing, just not really sure where to start and a little bit intimidated by setting up your own account and connecting Kali Linux to it and somehow making all of it work, you are in a good place. And finally, I just want you guys to know I am not an AWS expert by any means. So I literally just recently started learning AWS pen testing and just want to share with you guys what I am learning. I am not an AWS pen tester yet. In my current role, I do web apps for the majority of my time, but one day I hope to do an AWS pen test. So just know I am not an expert. So if you feel like a noob, hopefully you feel welcome here. So what I would encourage you guys to do right now is you can open up Kali, or you can just open up your browser. We're going to begin with point number 1, which is just creating our free tier AWS account. So usually I do all of this on Twitch and OBS. So let me see if I can share my screen properly right here, and we will walk through this together. It's always the process on Zoom when you have to, grab the right screen and all that good stuff. There we go. Okay, hopefully you guys can see my screen. For those of you in chat, if you can let me know if you can see my screen, okay? Oh, let me share. There we go. Now you should be able to see my screen. And I'm going to get chat pulled up so I can monitor the chat over here. We got you guys pulled up. Okay, beautiful. So if you guys can see my screen, what we are going to do right now, you do not have to do in Kali, okay? So you can do this just in your regular web browser. Everything we're going to do in this first part is within the AWS console. So I'm going to take this link just for ease of use, and I'm going to drop it over in the chat. And I'm going to give all of you just a second to join me right here. You can also just go to Google and type AWS console login and click the first link. So however you want to do it, I dropped the link over in the chat, and it's also right there if you Google it. The other thing I will say is at the end of this workshop, we will have some time for troubleshooting. So I'll run through this. I'll keep my eye on the chat. So if I'm going too fast or going too slow, or if you have additional questions as we walk through this, please drop it in the chat. I have chat pulled up on one of my monitors, so I'll keep my eye on the chat this entire time. Or if all of a sudden the audio breaks or my video breaks, please let me know, and I'll do my best to fix it right away for you guys. So once again, I'm going to give you another minute, get a drink of water, get to the AWS console. This is where we're going to start. All right. I'm going to assume all of you are here. I'm going to talk really slowly, just for those of you who aren't yet to the console. But if you're at the console, here's the first spot. You can kind of guess what we're going to do. At the top right corner, just go ahead and click Create an AWS account. Okay, so what we're doing here is setting our user email address. So you see root user email address. It's really just the email that you're going to use for this AWS account. And one caveat I want to note on for you guys, do not use an AWS account that has anything sensitive in it. So what CloudGoat is going to do is it's going to deploy vulnerable resources. That's what CloudGoat is. It is a vulnerable AWS deployment tool that has different scenarios that essentially teaches you pen testing through CTF scenarios. So the things it deploys is vulnerable. So please do this in a sandbox environment. So like if your company has an AWS account, do not use CloudGoat with your company's AWS account. I would encourage you to set up your own sandbox account. So you can kind of guess what we're going to do here. Use whatever email address you are planning on using. I actually set up an email just for this. So if you guys can email this, I'm not going to respond to you because I'm going to delete this email as soon as we're done. So go ahead and type in your email. Your AWS account name is just choose a name for your account. I'm just going to call this Tyler CloudGoat. You can call this whatever you want. Probably don't call it Tyler CloudGoat. Just Josh said, so does email matter? No, yes, it does. So you're going to have to verify your account with this email. So I just created an email for this because I already have my own AWS account with my primary email. So I just had to create a new email. But yes, please use an email that you have access to because you're going to have to use that email to confirm the account. Good question. Just looking over the chat. If you guys have any more questions about this, let me know. Otherwise, we'll keep going on. Just Josh says, okay, but the email itself is not sensitive. No, you'll be fine. Go ahead and click verify email address. And once again, like most things, we're going to get a verification code. So you should be able to navigate to your email and grab that verification code. Here's mine. Code's valid for 10 minutes. So get your verification code, paste it in there. I'll give you guys all a second to do that. All right, now we are going to set our root user password. Of course, make this a strong password. So go ahead and do whatever password you want here. I'm going to do a pretty simple password because once again, I'm deleting this entire account when I'm done with this workshop. But if you're going to use your account, of course, use a long, strong password. So type in your password and then continue. I'm not going to save mine. And John shared his password with all of us. Thank you, John. Okay, how do you plan to use AWS? So we're just going to say personal. It's for our own projects. And now you will have to use your real information. So I'm going to start typing in my name. And actually, guys, what I'm going to do here, even though you could probably Google me and find all the information about me, I'm going to stop sharing my screen just briefly while I do this part. So let me get Zoom pulled up. And I'm going to stop sharing. So you guys are back to looking at my face just while I type in my information here. But go ahead and fill that information out for you as well. So do your full name, You do need a valid phone number because you're going to get a text message, if I remember right, confirming your details. So type in a valid phone number that you have access to right now. Throw in your address, your state, all that good stuff, or your country. And then, of course, once you type in that information, make sure you check I have read and agreed to the terms of the AWS customer agreement. If you want to take the time and read the AWS customer agreement, go ahead and do that as well, but we're not going to wait for you to read the whole thing. After that, you'll hit continue, step 2 of 5. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen just to walk you guys through this next part and explain it a little bit, but then I'll have to stop sharing my screen again, just because once again, this will be sensitive information. So you should be able to see my screen again. Once you get to this point, I need to get the chat pulled back up. 1 second, I'm gonna pull up my Zoom tools, pull up chat. There we go. Once you get to this point, you have to also provide a valid credit or debit card number. Now, just note this. We will not charge you for usage below AWS free tier limits. We may temporarily hold up to $1 or an equivalent amount in local currency as a pending transaction for 3 to 5 days to verify your identity. So you do have to use a real credit card. I try to use one of those just credit card generators that gives you a valid credit card like number, but that doesn't work. So you need to use a real credit card here. And of course, I'm not going to share my screen as I type in my real credit card. If I can even find one. I've already used one of my cards, which means it's not going to work. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen once again with you guys, and we'll come back to it. Just Josh said, what is the limit? That is a good question. I'm actually going to look that up myself. I haven't ran into any issues. As long as you don't have a bunch of resources running, I think it's a pretty decent limit. So let's even just check it out ourselves. So what is the AWS free tier? Free tier is comprised of 3 different types of offerings: a 12-month free tier, and always free offer, and short-term trials. Services with a 12-month free tier allow customers to use a product for free. And that's what we're getting if you sign up for the first time, is that 12-month free tier. You'll be able to get notifications if you get charged with anything. Sean said with EC2, which is VMs and such, they specify what is free tier eligible. Okay, good. So once you sign in, you'll see it. I haven't had any charges to myself using this for CloudGoat, but you should be good for 1 year, I believe. If you do get charged, though, don't yell at me. Let me go ahead and stop sharing now. Okay, so go ahead and type in your credit card information. I'm going to do the same thing, just I'm not going to do it live because that would be a terrible idea. Probably should check with you guys to make sure you're not seeing my screen, but I don't think you are. That'd be rough. Okay, now, once again, I'm not going to show you guys this next screen. I think you can figure out the next screen. But you have to verify with your phone number. I'm not going to share my screen again because I don't need everybody to text me. But go ahead and type in a valid phone number on the next screen, because it's going to send you a text message or a voicemail, whatever you want, and fill out the CAPTCHA. I'm doing all this along with you guys, so we'll get this to work together. Once I go through this step, I want to pause to make sure everybody gets caught up with where I'm at. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen with you guys. There we go. Let me pull up the chat. Okay, Powell said, does anyone know if I can get the free tier if I create a new account? I had one for a year, but can delete it if it would be eligible on a new one. So unfortunately, I think the way this is connected is, I believe it's connected to your email as well as the credit card or debit card, whatever card that you use to sign up for it. So you could get a new free tiered account, but it would require a separate credit card and a separate email. I just happen to have 2 cards, so I was able to do one for my own AWS lab and then also one for this workshop. But I believe if you repeat either one of those, it will not work for you. Yeah, no problem. I'm going to give you guys a minute just to make sure you get to this screen. If anyone is stuck, please let me know in the chat and I will slow down. I'll get a drink of water while I wait for you guys. Chilling in the council now. Okay, cool. So of course, on the support plan, we're just going to do basic support free because we like free stuff. Just click complete sign up. And congratulations, guys. You have created your AWS account. So once you're at this screen, you can go ahead and go to the AWS Management Council. They're activating your account. It should take a few minutes, so it might be a second before we can all sign in. And yeah, just Joshing said, hate that it makes you literally log back in again. I agree. Chris Williams told me to wait. Okay, I'm going to wait. Give you a minute, Chris. Chris, if you're stuck on something specific, let me know what it is, and be happy to help you. The rest of you guys, just within the next minute, go ahead and get logged into your AWS account, and we'll go from there. And I'm actually going to log in right now as well. Done. Okay, Chris said he's done. Perfect. Anyone else stuck or need a little more time, please let me know over in the chat. My goal is to get every single one of you to launch your first CloudGoat scenario. If I can do that, that is a huge, huge win, huge success in my eyes. All right, I'm going to go ahead and log in. Click sign in. Okay. All of you should be, hopefully at this point, to our management council. I don't need instructions. I am the instructions. So hopefully you guys are all here. There's a few different ways to access what we're going to access next. You can click I am right here. That's one way. Or in the search bar, you can also just start typing I am. Really easy to access different things, but manage access to AWS resources. Once again, we'll give you guys all just a second to get there. And I know I feel like a broken record, but truly, if I'm going too fast or if someone's behind a little bit, yell at me, tell me to wait, and I'll wait for you. Once you're here, go ahead and click users over here underneath access management. And you should have 0 users unless you're doing this in an account you already have set up. But once we're at users, just click the blue add users in the top right corner. Chris said it made me log back in. All right, Chris, are you at this point yet? You need me to slow down? Yes, please slow down. Okay. So Chris, I'll repeat this step just for you real quick and anyone else who might be stuck or had to log back in. The easiest way to access where I'm at, Chris, once you log back in is in the search bar at the top of the console. Just type I am. And then click manage access to AWS resources. Let me know when you get to that point. Okay, beautiful. He says, I am there. All right. Once we are here, go ahead and click users on the left side here underneath access management. And once you are here, you'll see that we have no users. Click the blue add user button in the top right corner. Give you guys just a second to find that. And we are going to set up our user. You can have this username be anything you want as long as you follow the valid character. So I'm just going to call it, CloudGoat. So we know what it is. You do not have to provide the user access to the AWS Management Council. Our CloudGoat user will not be using the council. So type the username in there and click next. Simple enough. And once we're at this point, we have this permission options. There's a few different permissions we have here. What we are going to do is add user to a group, add user to an existing group, or create a new group. And of course, we need to create a group. So at this point, make sure you click add user to group and then click create group. Give you guys a second. For the group name, you can call it whatever you want, but what we're going to do is we're going to give our CloudGoat user full administrative access to our AWS environment. That's once again why I said make sure this is a sandbox environment with nothing in it. If you guys compromise this AWS instance, or AWS console, you can't really do anything to me. Plus, I'm going to delete it. But your CloudGoat user is going to be an administrator so they can create resources as you spawn different CloudGoat scenarios. So type in administrator for your group name, and then policy name, we're just going to check administrator user. So user group name can really be anything you want, and then administrator access, make sure you check that. Todd said, should we click on the box, provide user access to the AWS MC? Do you mean council? You do not need to provide them access to the council unless you want to, but you don't need to. Your CloudGoat user will not need to access the console or the management console. They will not need to access the GUI. We'll do it all in the command line. So it's giving you guys a chance to catch up to this. Administrator for your group name, or group name doesn't matter, but administrator works. The biggest thing is make sure you check mark this policy administrator access and then click create user group. Once you create the user group, you need to actually mark that group to add the user to that. So we're creating the user, we created that group, and we have to check mark that group to say we want to put the user in that group. Gonna pause right there. I know that was a lot of steps, but really important steps. I want to make sure you guys get that done. If you need a little more time, let me know. Otherwise, I'll move on in just a few seconds. If I see silence in the chat, I'm going to assume you guys are all ready to rock. Sorry, I got behind. Okay. Gloria said, I'm watching it. However, I am not home, only have my PC. Are you going to post this on YouTube? Pablo said, I'm not seeing administrative access. Do I add group? Okay. So let me answer each of your questions one by one. Gloria, yes, we will get this posted on YouTube. I'm not sure if it'll be on my personal YouTube page or if we'll put it on the Rhino page. I will say if you guys are not part of the Rhino Discord, that's the first place that we're going to post it. Would encourage you guys to join that Discord. I'll drop the link to that later. Pablo said, I'm not seeing that administrator access. Todd said, do I add group? Oops, I only have cell phone. Sorry. Why not both pages? Sorry, caps. Okay. So if you're not seeing that administrator group, without seeing your screen, if you're in this console right here and you click create group, you should see administrator access at the top. If you don't see it, maybe for some reason it's sorted differently, you should be able to start typing it. So if you start typing administrator access, you should be able to find it and add a group name, check mark that, and create user group. Just not doing it because I already did it. But you should be able to start typing for it. Administrator access is a built-in policy to AWS, so it should be there. How's everybody doing? You guys doing good? Pablo got it. Awesome. Good job, Pablo. All right. I'm going to assume you guys all have this, so make sure you check mark this and go ahead and click the next button. You don't need to worry about the permissions boundary. So it's going to have us review the user, all right? So just make sure your settings match my settings. Username, CloudGoat, that can be whatever you want. Console password type, no, we don't need console access. Require password reset, no. And permission summary, we want administrator, group, permissions group, and that should be connected to the administrator access AWS policy. We do not need to add a tag. This is all we need. So make sure yours looks like this. And if it does, go ahead and click create user. And it should bring you back to our user area here. And you should see your brand new CloudGoat user in your administrator group. Once again, want to give you guys a second. Make sure you get to this point before we move on. Just want to let you guys know, like so far within about 20 minutes, you have created a free tiered AWS account. You have created an IAM user, and we're about to keep on moving. Todd said stuck at user group. What part of the user group are you stuck at, Todd? So Todd, if you watch my screen, I'm just going to run through that one more time. Oh, it's okay. Totally fine. If you name your group something different, that's totally fine. Your group can be named whatever you want. I clicked on the box for administrator access. Okay, perfect. So Todd, if you did that, what you probably did is you clicked the create group, make sure you add a name under group name, click the box for administrator access like you did, scroll down and click create user group. That might be the step that you're missing. I'll even just do the whole process again real quick. And then it should create your account. I have 2 of them. You should only have 1. Randy said, I have a user already. Can I now just add the group? Yep, you got it. You could do that. So I have a test user. I just made it to show you guys that process again. Okay. All right, I'm going to move on. If anyone is stuck at this step, though, at the end of the workshop, I will hang around and we can work on it one-on-one to make sure you get it set up and tested and ready to go. But I'm guessing most of you are to this point. So if you are, congratulations. We are getting closer to launching your first CloudGoat scenario. What we are going to do now is generate access keys. Access keys are going to be how our Kali Linux machine communicates back to our AWS environment through the command line interface, right? So big words, that's okay. It'll make sense when you see it. Randy said, mine does not say admin, it says none. Oh, that's just MFA, I think, Randy. Might be what you are seeing. No, under groups. All right, I'll go back one more time real quick. So it may be none because you didn't add the user to the group. He said, okay, no, it's not loaded up. We are good. Okay, cool. We are good. Sweet. Fantastic. All right. So anyways, if you guys are stuck at this step, I think most of you are past this step, but if you are stuck, I will hang around after our workshop and we'll hang out together till you get this working. But now go ahead and click your user that you created. So I just clicked the CloudGoat user, and this is going to open this up right here. And at this point, we want to go ahead and click the security credentials. As I was sharing before, what we're going to create is access keys, and it's how we are going to be able to communicate with our AWS environment through the command line interface. Todd said, I missed the part to add user to group. Todd, I'll come back to it if I can in just a little bit. I'm going to keep moving on just at this point. Basically, you just have to check mark the box so to add the user to the group. But if you hang around, we'll swing back around to it once I get past through this part. Go ahead and click your guys' user. Mine's CloudGoat, and click security credentials. Going to give you all a second to do that. Pablo said I had to hit refresh to see it. You can add the group here too. Oh yeah, you could. So even if you click this, you can add the group here too. So if you click groups, you can add user to groups, and you could add the group that way. But Todd, if you are stuck, I assure you, I'll hang around and we'll make sure we get you through it. But anyways, at this point, make sure you guys click security credentials. And now scroll down to security credentials. You're going to see access keys. So use access keys to send programmatic calls to AWS from the AWS CLI, PowerShell, all that good stuff. And that is how we are going to communicate through Kali, VM, and CloudGoat. So on our user, go ahead and click create access key. Give you guys a second to find that yourself. Once again, create, if I scroll down, underneath access keys, so we're in security credentials, right there, access keys, create access key. Now, I already shared before, we're going to be using this for the command line interface. So go ahead and just select that first one for command line interface. It says some recommended alternatives. We are going to ignore that. We know it's not the best way to do it, but we are quite literally making a vulnerable AWS environment. So it works. So check mark command line interface and go ahead and mark, I understand the above recommendation and want to proceed to create an access key because the dude on the Zoom webinar told me to do so. Give you guys a second. Make sure your screen looks like this before you click next. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and click next. Tag value, this can be anything you want. I'm just gonna call it CloudGoat access keys, but you can type cat in there if you want. Like, it doesn't matter what you put there. And go ahead and click create access key at that point. I'm going to give you guys a second before I do that. Make sure you're at where I'm at. Okay. Gonna assume you guys are good. Go ahead and click create access key. All right. Do not leave this page until you get these things copied down. Okay. So this is the only spot you're going to be able to see your secret access key. Of course, if you lose it, because you're an admin in your AWS account, you can just generate a new one, but save this stuff. So what I'm going to do is open up a mousepad here on Kali, and I'm just going to say access key, and I'm going to copy that access key down right there. Just Josh said Windows snipping tool. You may not want to use the Windows snipping tool because you can't copy and paste from your Windows snipping tool. You'll want to get this in a spot where you can easily copy and paste it. And also, this is sensitive. Don't share it with people. If you guys want to go ahead and try to access my environment, go ahead with my access key and my secret. You can type all that down, be my guest. As I said before, I'm going to delete this as soon as we're done. But if you are doing this, don't share your secret key with people. That's like if you think of SSH, that's your private key. So make sure you have your access key and your secret access key before you leave this page, and don't take a screenshot of it. Make sure it's in a way that you can copy and paste it, because we're going to copy and paste it. And I assure you, you do not want to type that out based on a screenshot unless you enjoy pain and typos. So once you have that, once you have your access key copied, your secret access key copied, go ahead and click done. Sean said, looks like it can also be saved from CSV2. It might be easier. Yeah, you're right. You can just do it that way as well. Now, if you do lose your access key, it's not a big deal. Since you're the admin, as I said before, you can literally just generate new ones and delete your old ones. So not a huge deal if you lose them. So at that point, you should see access key 1 right here. We see that it's active. Your screen should look similar to this, showing your access key 1 up there. I'm going to wait a second, make sure you guys are all at this spot, and then we will continue. But so far, what are we at? In 30 minutes, you guys, you have created your own AWS account. You have created a user in your AWS account, and you have generated access keys. So congratulations. We only have 3 steps left, and you are going to launch your first CloudGoat scenario. Isn't that exciting? I'm excited. I'll be excited for you guys. Now, at this point in time, you do need to get your Kali VM open. So if you didn't already have it open, go ahead and boot up Kali. I'm going to give you a second to do that. So we are done with this console so far. And we are going to be on the command line here in Kali. So 2 things I want you guys to do, and I'll give you some time to do this. Open up Kali, get your terminal open, and now go ahead and go to our GitHub, and I'll actually post the link down in the chat. So CloudGoat GitHub, you can Google it. Otherwise, let me grab this link and drop it in the chat for you guys. Todd said, do I need to complete those steps in AWS before I do Kali? Good question, Todd. No, you do not. So if you miss something in the AWS part, totally fine. What we're going to do right now is just install the dependencies that we need in Kali so we can launch a CloudGoat scenario. So even if you miss some stuff in the AWS part of it, start following along again for the Kali Linux part of it. There are some things you won't be able to do at the very end, but that's when we'll wrap around and make sure you get set up. So for this, the steps right now that I'm doing, everyone follow along, even if you miss the AWS aspect of it in the beginning. So once again, what you should be doing right now is you should have the CloudGoat GitHub open, and you should have your Kali VM going. Just Josh said Kali is booting. Okay, I'm going to give you guys just like a minute or two while Kali boots up. Chris said, I forgot my Kali password. Well, Chris, unfortunately, I cannot help you with that one. Yeah, it's a good chance it's Kali. If you just install the default, VM through Kali, it's just Kali, unless you set your own password. I always use the ISO, so then I have it customized. But if you just did it through Kali, it's just Kali. It's custom. All right, I cannot help you with that. You might just have to watch, take notes. Devin said, is there much difference in using Ubuntu? So Ubuntu will work. The main thing that we're doing here is Linux. What might be different is the way we install the dependencies. Honestly, no. You should be fine. I actually have an Ubuntu VM that we can circle around at the end if you do run into issues and we can troubleshoot together. But the installing the dependencies is actually it should be basically the same process, at least the way I'm going to do it, whether it's Ubuntu or Kali. Just if you run into a weird error, I won't be able to troubleshoot it with you right away. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys, it's 8:38. I'm gonna give you one more minute to get Kali booted up and get the CloudGoat GitHub open. Sweet, just Joshin's on the GitHub, beautiful. And just for context, I'm using the newest version of Kali Linux. So if you run into issues I don't have, I would encourage you to update and try these steps again. So this is the newest version of Kali Linux, completely fresh VM. This is the first time I've used this VM besides updating everything. Okay, it's been about a minute. Let's keep moving on. Now, really quickly, let me give you guys a brief overview of CloudGoat. CloudGoat is our vulnerable by design AWS deployment tool. It allows me to hone our cloud cybersecurity skills by creating and completing several capture the flag style scenarios. Each scenario is composed of AWS resources arranged together to create a structured learning experience. So each time we launch a scenario, it's going to create resources in the AWS environment you just set up so that you can then attack it from your Kali VM. Really, really cool stuff, I think. Hey, Jay Money, good to have you here, my friend. So that is CloudGoat. I'm guessing you already read about that. If you are in this workshop, I'm sure you at least Googled what is CloudGoat to figure out what you're signing up for. A few requirements. So Linux or Mac OS, Windows is not officially supported. I'm sure you could figure out a workaround to make Windows work, but it's not officially supported. But Linux or Mac OS, Python 3.6 or greater is required. If you do have the latest version of Kali, you have already fulfilled that requirement that is already installed. All right, here's where we need to pay attention. Terraform. I saw a lot of people on Discord running into issues with Terraform. I'm going to show you the easy way to do it so you don't have those issues. So go ahead and open this link. Install Terraform. I'm going to show you guys the easy way. Give you guys all a second to join me here. All right, hopefully you're all there. So once you get to install Terraform, we'll go ahead and click Linux. Actually, what we're going to do, we want to go to the binary package. I believe this is the right link, and if it is, I'll just drop this link down. Yeah, this is the right area. So I'm going to grab this and drop it in the chat for you guys. Hopefully you see that. Here's the page we're going to do. We're not going to do the package manager. We're going to download the binary. It is seriously way easier because I know a lot of you had issues with the package manager. Once you get to that page, we, of course, are using Linux. So go ahead and click Linux. And I want to give you guys all a second again to make sure you get to this point. So link is in the chat if you missed it. Terraform, binary, click Linux. That's what we're on. Ignore the package manager part. We're not going to do it that way. Making sure you guys are all here. All right, if I need to slow down, yell at me in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to keep moving and assume you are here. Go ahead and take the AMD 64 one and click download. Pretty simple. It's going to download a zip package. So going to give you guys a second to do that. AMD, download, and it should throw it in your download folder. Once you do that, go ahead and open up your terminal. Make sure you are in your downloads folder. And you should see that package. This is where you really feel like pen testers because we have Kali open and we're on the command line. All right. Very simple command, guys. To unzip a package is just, as you might guess, unzip, right? And go ahead and start typing Terraform. Now, you may be new to Linux. Let me just show you what I just did. If you start typing the package name and hit tab on your keyboard, it will tab complete it. So you don't have to type out that whole name. So that's the command, unzip, and then the package right there that we just downloaded. I'm going to pause there. I want to make sure you guys are all here. Todd said, not finding AMD 64 to download. Todd, did you make sure you switched from, I think it was Mac OS first? Well, Mac's there. Make sure you click the Linux tab. And actually what I'll do is I'll copy this download link for you and I'll send you the actual download link. Click that link I just sent in Zoom chat, copy that link over to your Kali VM, put it in your browser and should automatically start downloading the correct zip file. I'll give you guys all a second to download it and unzip it. Is anyone way behind? Everyone doing good? Silence. I'm gonna assume everything is good. J Money's behind. So J Money, dude, I'll hang out after the workshop and I'll make sure I get you set up. So don't worry about it. Not a problem at all. Usually I'm on Twitch till like midnight. So guys, I got plenty of time to hang out with you. Chris says, I'm changing my password. All right, Chris, I'll get you caught up as well after the workshop. Anyone else? So more today's, I mean, you guys saw it. I don't need to repeat it for you. I'm used to being on Twitch where like the people on YouTube don't see the chat. But all of you on Zoom here, you can see the chat. So more today's just shared how to fix the package manager way in order to get it to install via the package manager. But okay, if you guys downloaded the binary, let me show you how easy it is to do it the binary way. We're going to type sudo like that, mv for move, our Terraform binary, and we're going to save it to our path. We can just save it to user local bin. So I will actually grab this and share that command in the chat. And of course, you need to be in the actual download folder where that is at. So sudo move Terraform user local bin. We'll do that. Type in your password. And now if you type, I'll CD out of there just for proof of concept. If I type Terraform and version, there we go. We just installed Terraform. Good job. Hopefully you're to that point. If you can use Terraform -- version and it provides a response, you have Terraform installed successfully. It is in your path. I'm going to give you guys all a second to get to that point, and then we will keep going. That's probably the most complex dependency that you have to install, just because I know a lot of people run into that issue with the package manager, but I found the binary being really easy. You just unzip it and throw it in your path and you're done and everything works beautiful. More 2 days said, happy to stick around, help with any support. Awesome. Rick said, will you provide your Twitch before the end of the stream? I can. Would you be able to summarize what Terraform is? Sure. So the way Terraform is being used in CloudGoat is Terraform is kind of infrastructure as code, I think is the correct terminology. So using Terraform, you can spin up different resources, different VMs, all using Terraform, which is really code. And that's what CloudGoat does. It uses Terraform to create the different EC2s, which is just what AWS calls VMs, and different appliances for each CloudGoat scenario. Someone's probably watching this and like, Tyler, you totally messed that up. But that's my understanding of Terraform, for good or for bad. All right, I'm going to assume all of you are here. I hope you are. If you're at that spot, so if we go back to our requirements, Linux, check. We have that done. Good job, guys. Python 3.6, check. That was already done. Terraform greater than 0.14, check. We got that. The AWS CLI. So I didn't actually mean to leave the GitHub. I'll go back to it. Click that link, and I'll drop this link over in the chat for you guys, just so it's easier to follow along. And AWS does a really good job of telling us how to install it. So if you go to that link and click the Linux drop-down menu here, we can quite literally copy these commands. So I want to give you guys a second, make sure you're at this link. When you get to this link, you'll see this, installing blah, blah, blah. Just scroll down to Linux and click that button to drop it down. Devin said, I'm pretty sure I have AWS CLI installed. Is there a way to verify? Yes. You should just be able to type like AWS space dash version or dash version, if my memory serves me correct. And you may need to update it. So Devin, if you do have issues, you may have to go through these steps to update the CLI, because I think through the Kali package manager, the AWS CLI that I initially installed did not work. AWS CLI one. Yeah, you might be okay. If you do have an issue, Devin, you'll just have to update it and we can go through that process. But okay, I'm assuming you guys are all at this point. You can quite literally copy these commands. So we'll copy this first command here. Open your terminal back up. I'm just going to go back to my downloads folder, but you can do this anywhere. So copy that first command into your terminal, just like that. And I'll even drop it over in the chat as well. Once you do that, just like before, you should see it there. You can go ahead and unzip it. Oh yeah, you could copy and paste all three at once. You're right. You should be able to anyways. So you can also just copy all three. Otherwise, if you're doing it one at a time, this is all it is. But all the commands are there. So quite literally copy the commands. I'll drop all the commands real quick in the chat for you guys. Throw that into your terminal. And it should install it for you. Just takes about a minute. And so I'll wait even longer. Just want to make sure you guys are all caught up. Once you do have it installed, you can verify by typing AWS version. And you should get output like that. So Devin, that's where you might run into an issue. I just noticed you have 1.22 of the CLI and we're doing 2.11. So there might be an issue you run into, but honestly might not. We'll find out when we launch that first scenario. Want to make sure you guys all get caught up. Go ahead and take your time. Devin said you update. Okay, cool. Then you should be good to go. All right. Yell at me in the chat if you need me to slow down. As I said before, if you're way behind or if you missed the first part, I'll hang out with you guys and make sure you get everything set up. Hey, John. All right, man. Have a good night, my friend. Okay, hopefully you guys are at this spot. What we're going to do now is configure our profile. So remember when I told you to save your access keys and your secret because you have to copy and paste it? We are at that point. That's what we're going to do right now. So the way we're going to do this is AWS configure -- profile, and then whatever you want to call the profile. So this does not have to match what you call it in your AWS environment. I'm just going to call mine CloudGoat because it's easy to do, but you can name this anything you want. I'm going to go ahead and copy this command for you guys, and I'll drop it over in the Zoom chat again. AWS configure profile CloudGoat. When you hit enter, it's going to ask you for your access key ID. You should have saved that somewhere. Mine's right here. So go ahead and copy that and paste it. Simple stuff. Hit enter. And now it's going to ask you for your secret access key. So go ahead and grab that secret access key. Yours, not mine. You can do mine as well, I guess. And paste it in there. I'll make sure you guys all get to that point. Default region. I think most of the scenarios are launched by default in US East 1, if my understanding is correct. So you can type that as the default region. You can also just skip the default region as well. It's not required. Hit enter. Output format, just hit enter. Done. Want to make sure you guys get to that point. I'll give you a second to catch up. Just joshing is done. Perfect. We're almost there, guys. Exciting stuff. Okay, I'm going to move on. Please yell at me in the chat if you don't want me to move on. I'll give you 10 seconds because I think the live is a little bit delayed from when I'm saying it right now to when you guys receive my audio. Pablo said he's stuck at execute format error AWS. So Pablo, when you type, I'll type the command here. Well, when you type AWS version, do you get a response? If not, it may be that AWS CLI did not install properly. Okay, so that's the issue, Pablo. AWS did not install properly. So I'll do some really quick troubleshooting for you. But if this doesn't work, we'll hang out after the workshop. We're just about done and we'll circle back around. I'm going to drop these commands here. When you copy and paste those commands into your terminal, does it install AWS for you? Or the AWS CLI, I should say, to be more specific. Give that a shot, Pablo. If you're still stuck, we're just about done, and I'll hang around. We'll make sure we get you caught up. But for the rest of you guys who have that done, we are at the spot where we can install CloudGoat. So we're getting really close to launching our first scenario. What I'm going to do is just make a new directory, and I'm going to call it AWS Pen Testing, and I'm going to CD into my AWS Pen Testing folder. You do not have to do this. This is just for me to keep it organized. And while I'm here, Pablo said, I tried it yesterday. Seems like it's not overwriting. Cool. We'll figure it out, Pablo, as soon as we're done. But the rest of you, create a folder if you want, and go back to our CloudGoat GitHub, which I managed to close. You'll notice I skipped a dependency. I'll share with you guys why and how to install it if you need it. So if we go back to our dependencies, we have Linux done, Python done, Terraform done, AWS CLI done. JQ is actually a Python library, and it's already installed in Kali. So you can check by doing pip3 install JQ. And you'll see requirement already satisfied. It's already in the default libraries that we have here on Kali. So you shouldn't have to do anything with JQ, but if you do, it's pip3 install JQ, and that will install it for you. So congratulations, guys. We have all the requirements done. Now we can do CloudGoat. So go ahead and copy these commands. If you click this button right here, it should copy. I will drop it over here in the chat. Hopefully you guys see that out all. And we can paste those commands in here. Oh, it doesn't look like it actually copied for me to my terminal here. Isn't that weird? I copied it over to Zoom, but didn't copy it to my VM because that makes a lot of sense. I'll do it this way then. Copy and paste that into your terminal just like that, and hit enter, and fingers crossed, it should do everything for us. I believe it throws some errors at the end or some red scary text. You shouldn't have any issues. You can just ignore that. So give it a second. Shouldn't take too long. And we will get CloudGoat installed. So those are the things. You can ignore all of that. Okay, we have CloudGoat installed. I'm just going to clear my screen of all of that. Want to make sure you guys are to this point. So if I ls, this is what it should look like when you ls. You should see cloudgoat.py and all this fun stuff here. Make sure you guys are good to go. If anyone needs more time, let me know. And if you're stuck at a previous step, as I said before, we will circle back around and I will be happy to help you out to the best of my ability. Okay, once you have that done, what we need to do is configure our profile. I'm going to drop this command over in the Zoom chat, but you can get it from the GitHub as well. And what it's going to prompt us to do is the profile we set up. So remember, we just set up AWS configure profile CloudGoat, and we're going to use that profile. So if I hit enter here, it's going to say, would you like to create this file with the default profile name? We'll click yes. And CloudGoat is the profile we set up. So whatever AWS profile you set up in the previous step, when you did AWS configure profile name, whatever that name was, that's what you want to put in here. And I will go ahead and hit enter. The default profile name of CloudGoat has been saved. Randy, so just Joshin said, how do I change the profile name? You don't have to, just Joshin. So you can use whatever profile name you set up. It doesn't have to be CloudGoat. That's just what I called mine. Randy is saying command not found. If cloudgoat.py config profile does not found, it may be a step was missed previously. So we'll circle back around. How do I, you don't need a match. Oh, you didn't match them. So you're saying you went ahead, just Joshin. Yeah, you can just rerun that command. CloudGoat config profile, and you should be able to update it. Otherwise, what it's doing, Josh, is there's this config.yaml. So if you open config.yaml, there's your default profile. Just change this to whatever your profile is that you set up. Oh, it does ask if you want to rename it. Perfect. So you can just run it again and rename it. Otherwise, if you manually update config.yaml, that's all that's doing is dropping it there. Joshua said, how do you go about listing your created profiles? Oh, I'm not actually sure. To be honest with you, I'd have to Google it. We'll come back around if you have an issue with that, Joshua, and we'll figure it out together. The rest of y'all, hopefully you were able to do that. Config profile, same name that you set up previously, because that's how it's going to connect to your AWS environment. You have that step done. The final step that we need to do is whitelist, which what this is going to do is just whitelist our IP. You guys can go ahead and attack my IP when you see it if you want, but it'll just whitelist your public IP address. The reason this is important is when it spawns like a vulnerable EC2 web server, you don't want me to be able to connect to your web server. So this is going to whitelist just your public IP address, so other people around the internet are not attacking your vulnerable web servers that you spin up, because of course they are on the internet, but this will whitelist it so only your IP can access it. And I guess what I'll do, honestly, you can't do a whole lot with my IP, but I am going to stop sharing just for a second. Go ahead and run that command, and it will ask you, would you like to continue? And it will create a whitelist.txt with your public IP address. Mine is done. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen with you guys. There we go. Get chat pulled back up because it always likes to disappear. Oh, let me see if I can find Zoom over here. There we go. Hi, Zoom. All right, I got chat pulled back up. Thank you, Tyler. Tyler said AWS configured list profiles that will list your profiles. Thank you, my friend. Everyone with the name Tyler is a good person. It's a good name. All right. Hopefully you whitelisted it. Once again, if you missed that, literally just copy and paste this command. I don't think I dropped it in the chat, so just because I've been dropping all the commands there, I'll drop it over there. Just hit Y and it should whitelist your public IP address. Now, if you're to that point, congratulations. You are ready to launch your first scenario. At your command, CloudGoat can create an instance of a scenario in the cloud. When the environment is ready, a new folder will be created. Now, I'll give you guys a quick run through of how these scenarios are set up, but I'm not going to give you a full overview. I actually created a playlist on my YouTube channel. Right now, there's 6 hours of content, but I'm continually upgrading it, or updating it, I should say, where it's me working through these scenarios live. So it's not just like a typical walkthrough. It's me stumbling through it, making mistakes, getting frustrated, and hopefully you learn from my methodology. So I just dropped that in the Zoom. I cover a lot of these scenarios. Once again, me working through it, 6 hours of content. So feel free to work alongside of it with me on YouTube as you work through your first few scenarios, as you get used to it. So each one of these scenarios are down here. The first scenario that we're going to launch is vulnerable Lambda. If you just click visit scenario page, going to drop it over here to you guys. Visit scenario page. Each scenario is going to tell you the size. That is just how many resources it's deploying in your AWS environment. Going to tell you the difficulty. Easy is a good place to start. Going to tell you the resources that you're going to start with. The scenario start. So we're going to start with a billable user and the scenario goal. So this is like, how do you win the scenario? We need to find a secret. It gives you a summary of how to start, an exploitation route to show you, like in a GUI, this is how we're going to finish this scenario, a walkthrough kind of listed out. And finally, each scenario also has a cheat sheet that will give you the specific commands to use. So as you're doing this, especially for the first few times, here's how I did it, guys. When I first did this scenario, I followed the cheat sheet line by line because I had no idea what I was doing. But every time I encountered something that was new to me, I Googled it. So I understood what was going on. So the goal is not to speed run through these. The goal is to learn. Once you have that down, then I began doing scenarios just by looking at the walkthrough. So I'd say, okay, get permissions for the billable user. And I would remember, like, here's how I got permissions. Here's how I listed roles. And then once I was comfortable with that, I started just looking at this. And very similar thing, little less details in the walkthrough, and try to work my way through it just by looking at the exploitation route. And finally, once you have that done, you can look at the start and the goal and just try to do it on your own. And then if you get stuck, of course, these resources are available to you. So that's each scenario. And I also say we're always accepting scenarios from the community. So as you get more experience, you can create your own scenario. You can submit it to us on GitHub. We will review it, and you can have your very own published CloudGoat scenario. Now, let's go ahead and launch that first scenario. It gives us the command right here. You can just copy that command. I'm going to drop it over here in the chat. And then from your CloudGoat folder, where cloudgoat.py is located, you can go ahead and paste in that command. And the magic happens. Tyler said, is there an order to the scenarios? Yeah, sort of. So the way I would do it, and actually the way I did it, I should say, let me open the right tab, is start with the easier ones and start with the ones you're more comfortable with. So if I look at the scenarios, I think the ones I covered on YouTube were vulnerable Lambda. Vulnerable Cognito is new, so I haven't actually done that one. That was submitted by a community member. I did Privest by rollback. I did Lambda Privest. I did Cloud Breach S3. I did Privest by attachment. I think I did this one offline. I haven't made a YouTube video for it yet. This one is actually way more difficult than Medium. It's some Docker escape. And then I did RCE web app. So those are the ones I've done. It all depends how comfortable you are with it. Like, I'm really comfortable with web app, so this one was easy to me, but that's only because I do web app pen testing for my actual job. So I would honestly do the scenarios kind of the way they're listed out. The only exception is ECS takeover is way more difficult than Medium. I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest. Some cool containerization stuff in that scenario. Okay. Here you guys go. So if everything worked correctly, I want you to notice what it's doing. So Terraform is creating a user in your account, a Bilbo user, and just like how we had an access key ID and a secret key, it's setting that up for our Bilbo user. So what we are going to do is very similar to what we did before. So if you remember the command, we're going to set up another profile, but this time just for the Bilbo user. And actually, just to show you guys what it's doing, if you open up your console here, I might actually have to refresh it fully. I'm just going to open a new tab. This should work. So you don't have to do this to do the scenario. Just want to show you guys how it's working. There we go. We have a Bilbo user. So our CloudGoat scenario created this Bilbo user. And if we click our Bilbo user and go to access keys, we can actually see it also created the user and access key. So that's what CloudGoat is doing. It's spawning these resources for you so you don't have to manually do it, and then giving you your access key and your secret so you can begin working through the scenario. So before we can formally start this scenario, we need to configure another profile, but for the Bilbo user, that's just AWS, configure like before, profile, and then Bilbo. Whoops. I'm going to copy this command for you guys and drop it over in Zoom. And just like before, it's going to ask us for our access key, and we can just grab the access key from right here, copy that, paste it. Secret access key or secret key, once again, go ahead and copy that, and then paste it. Region, I'm just going to do US East 1, but you can also just specify this when you run the commands. Enter, enter, and we have just configured our Bilbo user. I'll give you guys a second to do that, and then I'll just show you how to make sure it's actually working once you get that done. I'm not going to run through this scenario on this workshop only because I covered it in a YouTube video. So you can check out that video where I go through this whole scenario, I think in 2 parts. This is the first one I did, so I was a total noob to this. So you can watch how I struggled through it myself. Once you have that done, you can actually run this command. This is basically who am I, but in AWS CLI command version, right? AWS profile. So every command that we run here, and you're going to notice this, you have to append it with profile and then the profile that you're using, which we are using Bilbo. Region, I don't actually have to specify that because I specified it when I created the command, and then STS get caller identity. So if I hit enter on that, it should provide me with more information. If you're able to get that information from that command, I'll drop it over in Zoom. It shows that you successfully configured CloudGoat and you have launched your first scenario and you are ready to struggle your way through it and learn. Walking through this scenario and explaining this command right here is out of scope for this workshop. Once again, I created a YouTube video on this, but if you guys find this valuable, I have the idea of in the future doing webinars like this, but just all of us working through a workshop together in a more kind of private environment, or even on our Discord, jumping in the lounge, a few of us, and just tackling a workshop together and struggling through it together. If anyone's interested in that, ping me on Discord or drop a message in Discord, and would love to do that. And Joshua just said, what was the reasoning for creating the Bilbo profile again? So the reason for that is because our Bilbo profile is our vulnerable user that we're going to exploit. And so the scenario, if we go back to the scenario here, let me go to back up. Visit scenario page. So you have to imagine each one of these as a whole separate scenario. So if you've ever done try Hack Me or Hack the Box, try Hack Me has rooms, Hack the Box has machines. I want you to imagine each one of these scenarios as a new machine, and the user profile that you created is basically the way to access that new machine that you created. If you use the AWS profile you set up initially, which is CloudGoat, where you already have full admin rights, like you don't have to elevate your privileges, you are the admin. Whereas we created this user Bilbo. So the CloudGoat scenario created this user in your AWS account. If I go back to users here, and so we're starting as a low privileged user, and we have to become an admin. So if you breach an AWS account, like if you're doing a pen test for a client and the client gave you a low-level user in their AWS environment and told you, we want you to elevate privileges to become an admin, this is how you would do it. Bilbo is your low-privileged user, and we want to become admin in the client's environment. Just the client's environment is also your environment. Hopefully that answers your question, Joshua. If you have more questions, feel free to let me know. But okay, if you did this, guys, you have launched your first scenario. There is something really important before you sign off. When you are done with your scenario, you want to make sure you destroy it so you don't have to pay AWS money for running a bunch of resources. So the same command as before, instead of create, you just type destroy. And I'll ask you, are you sure you want to destroy? We'll hit yes. And now what CloudGoat's going to do is it's going to destroy all the resources it created in your AWS environment so that you don't get charged for running resources nonstop. You want to make sure you do this at the end of every scenario that you're doing. Now, one thing I want to make note of, CloudGoat can only destroy resources that CloudGoat created. I'm going to say it again. CloudGoat can only destroy resources that CloudGoat created. Some scenarios, I believe, trying to remember which one, but some scenarios require you to create an EC2 as part of the process. I think it's privest by attachment. You create an EC2. CloudGoat cannot destroy that EC2 because you created it. So in a scenario that you are creating another resource as part of the scenario, but it's you creating it, make sure you manually go into your console and destroy that resource, because CloudGoat cannot destroy resources that it did not make. Hopefully that makes sense. Most of the scenarios are all created by CloudGoat, and you should get this message: destroy complete, resources 8 destroyed, and we can verify that. So if we log back into our console, if you just refresh it, it may not show it right away, but if you open a new tab, go to your console, you can see our billable user is gone. CloudGoat successfully created and destroyed the billable user, and we are ready to start our next scenario. All right, I'm going to get Zoom settings pulled up right here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen just momentarily. Just want to let you guys know that is the formal end of the workshop. In that time, we created our free tier AWS account. We created an IAM user. We made access keys. We installed dependencies. We installed CloudGoat. And finally, we launched our first scenario. As I shared before, I have a playlist on YouTube, 6 hours worth of content so far that walks through many of those scenarios. Me struggling through it, just dropped a link for it as well. Hopefully that makes sense to all of you guys. I'm here. I'll hang around. If you guys have questions or are stuck on something, let me know what it is. And what I can actually do is give you permission to talk, and you can share your screen and we can walk through it together.